Like, it doesn't matter how many titles or honorary degrees or articles you have done or how much money you've made or anything. It's just, have you made a difference in people's lives? I've seen so many people retire from our company. We've all known older people. The only thing they think about is, had I made a difference? So if you think about your purpose and you think about making a difference, that will give you the intestinal fortitude to be a true speaker and an upstander in the face of something that you hold just not true.
When kind of the same thing, a purpose. We've always felt, our whole business has been around kids. And I've always said that I think our country's most precious natural resource are our kids. And we don't spend enough time thinking about them. We don't spend enough money on them. We don't spend enough time protecting them. We don't spend enough time educating them. And after what happened in Parkland, it was, hey, we think kids are our most precious natural resource. What was happening to the kids, we decided we had to stand up and say something, and we're really happy.
Yeah, I think that's, you can hear that passion in your voice, and so it's about the kids, right? Like, I had we were in Chicago, so we had some violent stuff, and these kids were getting killed, and a bunch of the business people just said, this is crap. Like, these are all our kids.
Right.
Like, these are not somebody else's kids. And so I would also say, just let that energy flow. Like, if you get angry, do something about it. And you did. And everybody else does something about it, then we'll move the country forward.
And is that passion and that sort of moral fortitude, is that what is needed to withstand the criticism that you took, both from, well, not both, from customers, from employees, the employees who quit, from Wall Street? It's one thing to take a stand, and it's one thing to be, confident and sure to your core that you're making the right decision. But when you turn on the television or the radio or open up the, Twitter or read in the paper that you are a dirty SOB and you don't care about the country, and that wears you down.
It does. When we did the violent stuff in Chicago, initially the Chicago Tribune started writing some really nasty articles about us. Corporate guys in, all they want to do is measure stuff. They don't want to give the money. All these kids are out here, and we're like, well, like if we say you're gonna have 100 kids in, you only have 50. Like, that doesn't really count, And so we were holding people accountable. And Jim Reynolds and I, who did it together, just said, you know what, like, we're just gonna ignore it. Like, think about the kids. It doesn't really matter whether someone thinks I did a good job or a bad job. So I think there is some of the that essence that's getting you going, that gets you through it. On the shareholder thing, I think that's completely crap, to be honest. I think,
specifically about the shareholder thing, as an excuse for not taking action?
Like, how many people you've talked to said, oh, well, my shareholders won't let me do it.
I have a responsibility to my shareholders.
Yeah, and I'm like, like, they come in all different flavors, Like, the noisiest ones are the ones who are in and out.
Right.
They're trading all the time, and you just have to ignore them. Like, you don't get paid in running a business to take orders. You get paid to actually run the company, and so you just ignore them. And then if you lose, you're going to lose your job. I've always said, like, if I lose my job because I took a stand on something that I believe in that's socially responsible, then that's a good reason to fail. Not likely to be the reason I'll fail. If you fail, it's going to be because you didn't do a good job in the business. So if you didn't do a good job in business, you're probably going to get kicked out anyway. So you might as well just do those things you think make a difference.
But Dick's Sporting Goods is a publicly traded company, but it's a family business. Right. So to a certain extent, you have a little bit of security in taking the stance that you take. But is that a reason to discount your bravery in what you did?
Well, I think some people would say that it is, and I'll give them their due. But we would have done this anyway, even if we hadn't, because I do think, as was said, that you do your job, you take a stand, you do what's right, and you let the chips fall where they may. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, shaving in the morning, you did the right thing. And if more people would do that, the world would be a better place.
So in the time that we have left, which is about 20 minutes, we're going to open it up to Q&A from the audience. There'll be roving mics on this side and that side. And keep your questions short, and please no speeches. If you start making a speech, I don't mean to be rude, but I'll cut you off and I'll be rude doing it. So, lavender sweater here, please stand up so the mic can find you.
I'm Bob.
It should be on.
This on?
It is.
It is now. I'm Bob Taylor from San Francisco and Silicon Valley. In the opening session, Darren Walker of the Ford Foundation made a very articulate and impassioned,
Hold up a little more, yeah.
and impassioned plea for major corporations in this country to rededicate themselves not just to their shareholders, but to other constituencies. How do we bring that about? You guys are a perfect example of two companies that are doing it, but the vast majority of companies are looking only at the bottom line.
Thank you, Robert.
Well, I'll tell you what I did, and Ed will have his own view. 3 years ago, I took on more leadership of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and for the last 2.5 years, the first thing we did was, what's the purpose of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce? And we got very clear about what the purpose was, and it is to do some of the things you talked about. We have our own foundation there, but then we go out, and I've been using that, and so I've been in this mission to say, look, businesses have 4 jobs. We got to serve our customers, we got to make money, we got to create jobs, and we got to improve the community. In our world, we chose to improve the community really by empowering youth and helping victims of domestic violence. So most companies want to do that, but I think if we could get it into like just 4 simple things, like, because when it gets really complicated, I can only handle like 3 or 4 things. And so by having a simple message, so we've been out working to do that, and it's changed what Chamber does. So we've been reaching out to a lot more Democrats, because to your point, we were part of the problem, right? Like, Democrats wouldn't support what we wanted to do, so we wouldn't support Democrats, so they wouldn't support what we wanted to do, so we didn't support them, so then they were mad at us, so then they did something else. And it's funny, you're in this like weird system, and you got to somebody just like say, stop, we're all in this together, we need to improve our communities, we need to create jobs. And so I agree with Darren about what his approach is, and I think it's then you as investors, shareholders, community members, hold companies accountable. Say, it's great you made $2 billion. How much did you help the thing? Because if you look at a bunch of, particularly some of the new startup companies, they haven't yet got their legs on how they're involved in the community, because they're not, like we're in every city in America. So we're kind of embedded in all these issues. But some of the tech companies, I think, here still have to get their legs. I'm going to call them out. Say, what are you doing? Are you using, X% of your profits to improve the community? And your voice will make a difference.
I think companies really do want to try to make a difference. As I said, ours has always been around kids, and there's a real funding crisis in youth sports. It's estimated that by 2021, 2022, you could have roughly 27% of the public high schools in this country without a sports program. And if you think about that, it's catastrophic for our kids. Our kids need a place where they're going to go after school, where they can be mentored, where they're with their friends, where they feel they belong. And these school programs are drying up. So we've really gotten with our Sports Matter Foundation to try to help fund these teams that are having a funding crisis so these kids can play. And we've touched probably a little more than 1 million kids, and we've spent a lot of money on this to try to get these kids to be able to play. We did a movie called We Could Be King, which is about the doomsday budget in Philadelphia in 2013, where they closed so many schools, consolidated schools. And when they consolidate 2 schools into 1 school, that means there's half the amount of teams, half the amount of kids who can play, which means half the amount of kids that have someplace to go after school, and the other half don't. And one of the defining moments in that movie was we filmed a Board of Education meeting, and one of the kids said, let the kids talk, and one of the kids said, without a football team, I'm not coming to school. And if you think about that, you fast forward that to 5, 10, 15 years to the fabric of the country, how important these sports programs are. We need to keep these kids in school because we have to educate our kids. And so that's one of the things that we're doing. And I think a lot of businesses really want to try to get behind something, and every business has to figure out what's right for them. For us, it's all around kids.
You have the microphone, but let me see some hands over here. So, okay, go right ahead.
I'm Mark Brown. I'm from Aspen, and I want to address this question about Allstate. And I know the spectrum of this talk is much more than gun violence, but in the sense of Allstate taking a stand, what is your policy on ensuring liability for gun owners and any kind of incidental damage or death that's caused by your insured? Do you require, for example, that gun be registered with you, have any kind of coverage, or that insured have any kind of certification on gun safety, or any of the above? Or would you consider taking that kind of approach to make your stand known on the damage that gun violence can cause us?
Thanks, Mark.
It's a good question. So we made a decision not to sell insurance to people for just guns. Like, you know, we thought about this because we had some people approaching us saying, look, if you could do that, you could charge a lot of money for the wackos, and that would stop them doing it. And we're like, you know, like we just didn't think that would work. If you do have a gun in your home, and something happens, so we do cover damage related to that. We do not do underwriting that says, you know, do you have the right training? Do you have the right, because it just would be prohibitively expensive to do that for every home. So we insure about 6 million homes, and we get about $1,100 per house. So it's a lot of money in total, but if you were to go out and try to prove and make every customer tell you, here's my permit, so we don't do that. But if something does happen with a gun in your house, you are covered for your liability. But we don't sell insurance to people just for guns. Like if you buy a gun and you want to cover yourself from liability, we don't do that.
Question there?
I was curious, at Dick's, what is the minimum wage at Dick's, and what is your justification for whatever that number is?
Our minimum wage is about $11 an hour, and we're taking a look at what we're going to do with the minimum wage going forward. One of the issues that I'm concerned about from a minimum wage, I'd love to see it, some bifurcation of it, because one, I think the unintended consequences of the minimum wage are, again, everything we think about is around kids, is that at $15 an hour, you're going to find a lot of kids aren't going to be able to find a job. So I would love to, I love the idea of a $15 minimum wage, but I'd like to see something that for teenagers, it can be less than that so that they can get a job. We'd love to be the place where kids come and get one of their first jobs, especially the ones that love to be around sports. So we think that the minimum wage conversation is a debate that we plan to be involved in.
Yeah, and I think on minimum wage, you know, it's easy to say you should. So our minimum wage is $15 an hour. We went there 3 or 4 years ago. I didn't even know it. Like I was walking around one of our service centers and it came up that it was $12. I'm like, I didn't even know that. I'm like, well, let's just make it 15. And you know, people didn't really, you know, that's kind of the way we did it. They were like, oh, it's going to cost this much more. And I'm like, you know, like we can handle it.
How did you, just go on. How did you not know it was, the minimum wage was 12?
I mean, yeah, you know, our company's got $40 billion of revenue, you know, $100+ billion of assets. Like, I don't look at everything we do. And so I was walking around, and it turned out, and I said, well, we should just fix it. And we just went to 15. But we could do that, and I don't know how we got there, and I'm kind of a point-forward person. I said, look, we pay people, they add enough value where we can pay them $15 as minimum to start and go from there. And so we just did it. I think that the trick is, like some of Ed's jobs don't add as much value as some of our jobs. And so one of the things we get paid to do is to deliver the right product to you at the right price. So you don't want to overpay, nor do you, so we have to do it. That doesn't mean we should pay people less than they deserve. So I think our challenge is create more high-value jobs. And I think it's a really big issue today because what's happening with digitization and in artificial intelligence, it's going to be like a tsunami that rips through the service industry. And there are jobs. We're getting ready. Like our employment's going up, but we're working hard to make our employment going up because there are a whole bunch of jobs that we don't need people to do anymore. We settled a claim on your car with 6 pictures, do it in 7 to 15 hours. Used to take 7 days. We don't have 937 drive-thrus anymore. So we should do that for you. But I got to then figure out how to create a high-value job if the computer's going to take that low-value job. So I think our challenge is, how do you create more high-value jobs?
Question right here in the blue. Could you stand up so she can get the mic to you? Anyone over here? I don't want to ignore anyone over here who might have a question. Okay.
As a young leader, I mean, you guys are amazing leaders of your companies. How do you take a stand internally? You got to fix within first, right? And you've got employees who are in high school and have a lot of the same issues, $400 in savings emergency funds. What do you do?
Thanks.
Not as a CEO in the company?
As a CEO,
Oh.
as someone who has control over those things.
I'm not sure
I don't understand the question.
Yeah,
So you guys both have internal communities, right?
yeah.
Right.
Employees. How do you take a stand on issues with them? And also
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, how do we take a stand with them? One, you always, of course, are out talking to people. You also have all kinds of social media stuff inside the company that you can hear on. But we've done some stuff this year, which was we actively worked to encourage people to go out and vote. And we didn't tell them who to vote for or how to vote. We just said, half of America is not voting. We need to vote. You need to stand up. So we're actually taking some of it and doing. The other part, I would say, is it becomes part of the employee value proposition. So we help, as I said, empower youth, do volunteer work in the United States. When we do a We Day in Chicago, in any of the cities we do them, we have to restrict the number of employees that go, because we have other partners who sponsor it with us, and they want to have some of their employees go. So we make it part of the employee value proposition. We have a Good Hands Week where everybody volunteers in the week. We give people time off. We give money to their charity. So it's about, and this is, I don't think we really talked about this much, but I assume you guys are in the same place, which is people come to work for you because they believe you're a good company today, not just because you pay $15 an hour. And so when they know what you stand for, and if you give them a choice to invest in the things that their time, in things that make them feel better, they'll be better employees.
We do a lot of the similar things. So we have we get out and talk to people all the time. We have town hall meetings. People can come to on different subjects, give their opinion. We gave everybody time off to vote in the last election. We think it's really important to get out and vote and do the same thing.
Good. We didn't do that, but I should think about it. Yeah, I mean,
We made sure
it's
people had
expensive,
time.
but
We made sure we gave people, we didn't tell them who to vote for. We had thoughts, but we didn't share them. But we gave them time off to vote. A day of giving. We do a number of different things inside to keep connected with what we call teammates, or people who work with us, our teammates, to make sure that we're doing the right things and give them a voice on what we're doing and how we do it.
Question right there. No. Sorry. Behind you. Yeah, sorry.
First off, thank you so much for sharing your insights and for your leadership in the space. Obviously, there's no shortage of matters of societal importance where we need companies to take a stand on. But what are some of the criteria that you've put in place when considering employee advocacy and the concerns that they bring to you, saying, hey, I really think we should be, raising our voice here or using our influence here, leveraging our platforms? So if you have any thoughts on kind of how you evaluate what comes to you, it'd be great to hear.
Thanks.
We take a look at that as to what we think is important to our teammates, what they really want to be involved in, and then do we have the expertise to really weigh in on those issues? And we're not going to weigh in on things that we don't have, that we have just enough knowledge to be dangerous about. So if we've got things that we feel we have an expertise in, that we can make a difference in, that we take a stand on, then we'll do that, and our teammates want us to do that.
and we try to do the same thing. Occasionally, though, we'll do something just because nobody else is doing it. So we got into domestic violence because it's an ugly issue, impacts 25% of American women, and businesses had bailed. So we got in, not even really knowing what we were going to do. They did come back to us as we got into it. They said, well, you know, how clean is your house? And I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty, like, I'm married a long time. And like, I think I'm good. But they were really asking, what are your company's policies and procedures around victims of domestic violence? So we had to make sure we were right there. Then what we did is we found that money is often a weapon of choice in domestic violence. And we know something about money. So back to Ed's point, like, I'm like, oh yeah, we know something about money. So we now have trained 1.5 million women on how to get out of an abusive relationship because the man ran up your credit card, takes your paycheck, all that kind of stuff. So I think sometimes it's what you're natural, then sometimes you just know what you're good at, you find this space and you go there. So like something I'm kind of interested now is family financial fragility. It's a problem when families don't have enough money, right? Like you all know if you've been in a situation where your family didn't have enough money, leads to fights at the house, aspirations you can't achieve, and like I don't know what to do about that, but I know it's not right in America. But I know we know something about money, so we'll see if we can. And if we can't do anything, then we'll let someone else do it.
There's a question over there.
Hi.
Amanda, I see you.
Sorry. Hi, this is actually just to build on the time off to vote. So just next month, Harvard Business Review is putting out a new case on corporate civic engagement that was written by some friends of mine. There's a launch in Washington profiling 10 companies that have gotten involved in getting their employees to register to vote and really encourage them to do that, including time off to vote policies.
Question.
So my question is just in terms of your ongoing civic engagement going into 2020, have you been thinking about what more you can do to push your employees to participate, how you are going to navigate that landscape very specifically for the election?
Great. Thanks.
We would expect to be doing the same thing, to give people the opportunity to vote, and then also trying to help them, people who need to register to vote. So we'll give them the opportunity to do that. I think, you know, I think it's really important that we as companies communicate to our employees, to our teammates, that it's really important to vote. It's one of those things that, not to be cliche-ish, but a lot of people fought and died for our ability to do that, and not to go do that, I think, is a real sin.
So for employees, well, I don't know, I need to think about this, whether we give them time off. I need to talk to Ed and see about that. But I would say we also fight it on another level, which there are people who don't want us to do that, and which is on things like gerrymandering. So we're regulated in 50 states. We play the political game 50 times. And we get involved in how do we pass laws or get things to change in gerrymandering. Not been very successful, I will tell you. But we spent some money on it. And we have some people outside our company who want to know every place we spend money so that they can try to embarrass us not into doing that stuff. It's about political contributions, and they're like, well, you need to tell us everything you do, and I'm like, well, you know, I'll tell you everything we do if you tell us everything you do, and of course they don't, and what they're trying to do is embarrass us not to stand up for the American political system and say gerrymandering is just like voter suppression, and so that's another thing we've been trying to fight on.
Amanda.
Hi, I'm a journalist at The Atlantic, and I cover corporate activism a fair bit, and it seems like there's a bit of a sincerity gap between companies like yours who are willing to lose money and make real changes in your business, and companies that are in it for a press release or a commercial and a warm and fuzzy press cycle. What do you think about those companies? What do you think about efforts like that and what their impact might be?
Well, I think it's, you know, I think everybody has to do what they think is right for their business, and I think one thing we as Americans are pretty good at is knowing that people that are sincere and people that aren't. So I think the people that do that for a press release or kind of a news headline, people see through it pretty quickly. Because if you don't sustain that view and that policy, people know.
Yeah, I'm with that. Like, we'll do what we'll do. We'll try to convince other people to do it. But I would say I think it's about leadership. Like, I actually wouldn't say it's the company. I mean, as a CEO, you do become the company. It's a little uncomfortable. Like, I actually don't like it that much because, you know, what you do is what people think about the company. And But it comes with the territory, so there's nothing you can do about it. But I think what you're talking about is the lack of leadership. You know, there are just some people in every profession who don't have the right kind of leadership capabilities, and that's politics. Like, I think it's one of the things we're missing. Like, I think we had people who stood up, had the intestinal fortitude to do what they should do and do what Ed talked about, and whether it's gun laws or anything else. So I think it's really about personal leadership.
So I'm going to take moderator's prerogative and use the last less than 2 minutes to ask you a closing thought. I mean, one of the things that sort of undergirds this whole conversation is the lack of trust in institutions. It's not the lack of trust, it's the erosion of trust, given everything that we've seen. You name the institution, we've learned about things that has shaken our understanding of them and our trust in them. Is there a way, or can we regain our trust in those institutions? You're each trying to do, in your own way, regain trust, whether it's in business or just in humanity. But we've lost a lot of trust. Can we get it back?
I think we can. I think that trust is not just in institutions like the ones that we run, but it's also from a government standpoint.
Right.
I mean, it's across the whole gambit. And I think we can get it back, but it's all going to depend on who's leading those institutions and who's involved in those institutions. And if you have those who just are worried about the next election or just worried about the next paycheck or the next quarterly results, then it's not. And we have to really find and identify those leaders who are willing to take a chance and make a change. And maybe some of them get run over in the process. But if you're not willing to take that chance, then we're not going to make a lot of change.
My answer would be yes, because people believe in America still. It's all of our polling, everything. People believe in America. They are distinctly unhappy with what we've got going today. And so what I think we need to do is fix it. The issue, I think, is too many people think we have too much time to fix it. I mean, you know, it's like, fix it today. Like, I don't know about Ed, but like, I'm like, I got a problem, boom, get it today. No, problems don't age well. It's not like wine. Like, they just get worse. And I feel like what we're doing is we keep putting this stuff off. And it's like, no, this is a problem, fix it and move on. So I think we can get trust back, but we need to pick up the pace.
Ed Stack, Tom Wilson, thank you very much.
Thank you.